Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of How to Survive Survival. This week, this guest is pretty special to me personally, because I am having a conversation with my baby brother, Stephen Buchanan. In this episode, we're going to have some conversations that we haven't had time to have because in our real lives, we're normally celebrating holidays and there are tons of kids running around and dogs barking and parents to be taken care of. And so we have a conversation this week about what drives him in his pursuit of impact. He is a former Green Beret, several deployments under his belt. And this week, this podcast comes out on Wednesday. On Thursday, he will be graduating with his MBA from Harvard University. And so I'll be up there watching him get his diploma. So proud, unbelievably proud of him and his accomplishments. But also the work he's doing with his startup, his tech startup, Bandelier Technologies. So without further ado, I welcome you into this conversation. All I see is this, 6-year-old running through a cornfield, who wouldn't leave me alone because I was a teenager, but now is an incredible contribution to society. So welcome, Stephen Buchanan. Hi, I'm Jessica Buchanan, and this is How to Survive Survival. This podcast is about what comes after the crisis, after the moment that changes everything, after you've done what you had to do just to get through. Each week, I sit down with people who faced hardship and made a deliberate choice about what to do with it. People who've turned pain into purpose, who found a way to make meaningful contribution because of what they survived, not in spite of it. Because survival isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of who you become next. Welcome to the show. Well, this is a first for me. I have never actually sat down for an interview with a family member, much less, as I lovingly refer to you, my baby brother, Stephen. Welcome to How to Survive Survival.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, big sister. And yeah, excited to have this conversation as something to look back on and, talk about some of our shared experiences.
Mhm. So I mean, it's hard to know where to even start, really, because of our shared history. Um, I think one of the questions that I get a lot in regard to you particularly, is when I tell my story about being kidnapped and rescued by SEAL Team 6. And then I share that my little brother is a veteran and that he served in the special forces for nearly a decade. They always want to know, oh, well, why? And I'm like, well, I don't know. You'd have to ask him. So here I am asking on behalf of the people that want to know, what prompted you really to go from you got a degree, your undergrad in accounting, and I will say that your college experience was interrupted a couple of times. One of those was definitely my fault because I got kidnapped. And then you get a business degree, an accounting degree, become a certified accountant, and then you decide to like completely switch gears. So why?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole experience of the kidnapping itself, then the support that we got through the government, through the FBI, and maybe as the liaison on the front end, but then all that was going on the back end from the various people that were helping from, Department of Defense, leading up into the rescue, and then the support after was definitely the catalyst. I think one of the things that was actually as I reflect back on it, one of the big things though was actually doing the internship, if you will, quote unquote,
Hmm.
with you and Eric in Somalia the summer before the kidnapping. I remember sitting over there, really not knowing what to do in my on my little computer in an office job, but thinking like, oh, this is cool. Like I like being in these like very weird, austere kind of places and thinking like, oh, it seems like a lot of the people over here have been in the military before. It seems to be more common than not. And so I think maybe that started to get the wheels turning a little bit of, like, oh, if I were to be in the military, what would I want to do? Growing up, we didn't know anybody in the military. I don't remember one
True.
person in Ohio
No.
that we knew that was in the military. So, for context, dad always told me my only way to go to college was playing basketball. Now
Hmm.
I know that that's actually horrible advice and not true at all, but it did work for me.
It
And
did. It
maybe
did.
that was his point, was that it was effective for me because I just thought from the time I was like 10, I was like, well, the only way I can be successful in life is to play basketball and get a scholarship and go to college, or else I just can't go. And that's hilariously not true. But for
But it
me,
also
it did
is what you
work.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did motivate me, and so very athletically inclined leading up into doing that visit with you guys. And then, but once the kidnapping happened, that was really the catalyst. Once you see the best that the US government has to offer, then, for someone like me who's very active and very, very physical, then that really kind of set things in motion. I was almost done with school, so it was too late for me to try to go to West Point or even do ROTC. I only had one year left, and so I just finished school. I looked at joining the Marines, as any red-blooded American would do,
I
and
do remember that.
yeah, yeah, and the forces were in a drawdown at that time. So basically, they said like we'd be happy to have you. We have no idea when this may or may not happen for you to go to officer candidate school. So I kind of did their very light touch like training program, but after maybe 6 or 8 months, there was no defined timeline. I was working in Chattanooga as a CPA, and so I thought, well, I have a good job. I'm making more money than we ever had growing up, right? So like
Sure.
maybe I
Yeah.
should just do this. So I put my head down, I got my CPA license, and then when I finally kind of peaked up after, being head down for so long, I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
I actually still hate this.
Yeah.
And
Well, I remember so vividly, and this is probably like one of the bigger regrets of my life because I felt like I was not emotionally in a place to like support you very well because I had a toddler and I was pregnant and I was going through my own emotional stuff. But you got a job at Ernst and Young and came to DC and you were like living with us at the time. And you were just like trying to make it work, but you were miserable.
yeah, that was the most miserable job experience I've ever had, which is really when I decided to join. And when I looked at joining, I looked at the Marines, like I mentioned. Obviously it could have made sense for me to try to become a SEAL. I'm just don't like the water that much, to be
Yeah.
totally honest. I'm not that comfortable in the water.
Yeah.
And then one of my good friends, his name's Scott, I played basketball with him in college, and he joined the Army and became a Green Beret. And, we stay in great touch till this day, but we talked about what he was doing, and he started to convey to me how the Green Berets accomplish the mission and their focus on their partner forces, so the special forces of the various countries that we go to, and how we integrate with them and how we live with them and how we train with them and how we go on the missions together. And that just really resonated with me and that really clicked. And I was like, that's how I think we should do it. That's what I think the most
Mhm.
effective way is. Like, yeah, maybe it's sexy to go flying on the helicopter, kick the door down, get the bad guy, and then go eat hot chow that night, right? But for a
Mhm.
long-term sustainable makeover of some of these places where the enemies may be taking such a foothold, a more long-standing presence where we really change and develop out a force that's a long-standing force that's native to that place, wherever it is, right? Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, it doesn't matter. That approach just really resonated. Learning the language, being culturally immersed, being good at everything, right? Like maybe some forces are far better at going and kicking the door down and clearing the house
Mhm.
out, or better at jumping from airplane or something, right? Fill in the blank.
Right.
But if you take like the most well-rounded skill set, then the Green Berets are easily that. And I'll
Yeah.
hold to my guns on that one. That as far as
Yeah.
a well-rounded force, it's easily the Green Berets, right? Other forces might be better at unique skill sets within there,
Sure.
but as far as like being able to do a little bit of everything, the Green Berets are
Yeah.
that. So that was a lot of why I chose that. And And yeah, and I'm glad I did it. It was definitely the right selection of which branch to join. But after the rescue and the SEALs going in and bringing you and Paul back, there was no doubt in my mind that I needed to join and wanted to join. It was just like, how was I going to join?
Mm. Was there a part of you that felt like you kind of had to pay back on like on behalf of our family?
Maybe a little bit, but I think like in life, right, it depends on what motivates you the most, but you're always seeking the impact. Like, what's the impact I want to make on the world?
Mm.
And to me, like, I got to see this amazing impact that these guys and these units, and, we'll never know everyone who is involved in it,
Yeah.
but throughout the last years, I've met people at random events who are like, "Oh, I was a pilot on Justice Rescue.
Hmm.
Oh, I was an intel analyst," right? That's
Hmm.
that's impact. Like that's
Yeah,
impact.
absolutely.
And I think rather than repaying a debt, it was like, oh, here's this very, very unique way to have impact, real impact in the world that matters. And so I think to me it was almost more the pursuit of impact. And then, it aligned well. Like I definitely have like a pretty high tolerance for risk.
Hmm.
Being very physically inclined. You want to
Hmm.
prove it to yourself too, right? Like, could I do it? Could I go become a special forces guy and go deploy and go see combat and those different things? And so, but I'm sure, there's certainly an element of like if those guys wouldn't have done it for us. But then I look around and then I think, well, they're in there now, but like who would be the next wave after them? Who's better suited to do it? So.
So let's talk a little bit about the pursuit of impact. I like that. I like catchy phrases and themes and whatnot. So that really piques my interest. I'm like, oh, that would make a great title for a book in case you ever decide you'd like to write one. Um, what do you think that's about? Because I am also driven by a pursuit of impact. And so do you think that, you know, and we just for anybody listening, we have a sister in between us who also I think in her own way pursues impact. She's a social worker and a counselor and she works in a like Title I public school. And so she's like literally on the front lines every day with it's kind of scary some of the stories she comes home with. Um so where do you think that comes from for us? Is that nature versus nurture? What do you think that's about? Is it because we grew up in church?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a worldview that the world is bigger than yourself. It's bigger than what you can see in your immediate vision, right? Like, Lauren always comments that I have like such an international focus to stuff.
Mm.
And so I think it does stem from that, seeing the world as a bigger place than just what's in front of you. Maybe it's from growing up in Ohio and wanting to get out of Ohio so bad,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
um, and maybe it's from growing up religious and a focus on, others over self, I guess, is what's being taught there. To lots of conversations could come out of that and what actually results from that, right? But in
Sure.
theory, that's what's supposed to be happening,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I do think it's, that focus on others than yourself and just knowing that there's a lot going on in the world beyond just my tiny little orb of my day-to-day events and what I have going on.
So, okay. Yes, I agree. I think that that applies to my worldview as well. So perhaps we can thank our parents for that. I will always say that the greatest gift um, mom and dad gave me was like freedom, because in the sense that I never felt obliged to like build a life right next door. I knew that it was hard, and our mom passed 16 years ago, almost seven, yeah, 16 years ago, and Stephen was only 21 when she died, so that's very, very young, um, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but I never felt like she expected me to live, you know, close by, and I felt like she understood that I wanted to go out and see the world and I wanted to have impact on the world. Um, and dad too. Like I feel like dad's always understood that about me. I don't know how that was communicated to you.
Yeah, I think like by virtue of them being somewhat nomadic during
Yeah.
their 20s, right? Then I
Sure.
think that
Yeah.
that conveyed that freedom, like you said, to go explore and go different places. I think like you paved the path, right, of going to Africa when you did and exploring stuff. She went to college further away, right? She didn't go to college
Mhm.
next door. She went out to Arizona and different things. And so I think like everyone, both you guys before me had done that. Mom and dad had lived in all over the country. And so, and I had no desire to stay where we grew up at long term.
Yeah.
So I think that that was always like one of those things that was encouraged, not discouraged, and one of those things that was welcomed.
Do you ever think about that in terms of like your own parenting?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, I mean, look at us right now. I have one, Abby was born at Fort Campbell in North
Yep.
Carolina. Charlotte was born, or excuse me, Abby was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Charlotte was born at Fort Campbell, Tennessee, Kentucky. And then Bo, the third, he'll be born in New Mexico, right? So, like,
Yeah.
the adventure and the pursuit of adventures, like just like they're gonna know, they'll always know that, right? That's like in
Yeah.
the lineage and that's in the blood. So, but you can't dictate where the adventure's at all the time, right? Like maybe the adventure for a couple of years for me was here in Boston, and this was its own
Mhm.
adventure. For a while, the adventure was in Iraq or Syria or, going to Somalia, right?
Mhm.
But maybe now the next adventure is in New Mexico, and their adventures will be wherever they feel like they need to go. But there's certainly no pressure that if the opportunity arises to stay in one place because mom and dad are there,
Mhm.
or that you have to be stuck in where you grew up at. But as a parent, you do see it different, right? It'd be cool if they did stick around. That'd be nice.
Yeah, no, right? I know because I mean, I sometimes think about that and because people ask me about that a lot too. Like, how do you feel about your kids going out and seeing the world after everything you've like been through? And I'm like, I mean, I still think the world is an incredible place. I think there's so much work to be done. I think there's so many there's better people, there's more good people than there are bad people. Those are the guns I'm going to stick to. Because I've experienced that very much in my life. And I want their worldview to be huge. And because I think that that is in and of itself what prompts and it cultivates that pursuit of impact in a lot of ways. So how long were you at active duty Green Beret?
Yeah, so I was in active duty for about 10 years, in special forces for about 7 years total, counting the training time and everything for that. And so that was
Mhm.
the 10 years before moving up to Boston.
And then what did you do in Boston? Why are you in Boston?
Yeah, so from there, I think towards the end of the 10 years, you kind of the 10-year mark is that point, that magical
Mhm.
point where you kind of need to start deciding if you're going to do the 20 plus and
Mhm.
do a career and retire, or if you want to pursue other endeavors. And I started seeing a lot of guys get out and doing their MBAs and going to really good schools. You have great veterans benefits from your time in, and I've
Mhm.
always been very entrepreneurial, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, Dad tells stories when I was 5 years old of setting up my own little hardware stand in his shop and selling him back the nuts and bolts
Yes.
and tools,
I,
right?
I remember that
So
very clearly. And you
yeah,
would try to sell them to his like clients
oh
that were
yeah,
stopping
his
by to pick
customers
up
would
their
come up and I'd go open up the shop. So, and seeing dad do his own business,
Yeah.
right? Like we're very used to seeing entrepreneurship, and
Mhm.
I hate having jobs so much. I hate having jobs so much, like just so much. Special forces is definitely the most autonomous thing you can do in the military. So,
Okay.
right? So, I think that that kind of fits in with it. But, the thought of as I came, so I'm here at Harvard Business School finishing up my MBA. And, as I started, I was pretty sure that I want to do something entrepreneurial, but you still, look around at the jobs out there, and just every job just seems like not the right fit for me. right? There could be a lot of reasons why they're the right fit for other folks, but for me,
Hmm.
it just didn't seem that appealing. And uh,
Why? Why weren't they a good fit for you? And what jobs are you talking about? I mean, because I imagine coming out of Harvard with an MBA and then your professional background with special forces, like people would be lining up at your door to hire you.
yeah, I don't know if they're lining up at my door to hire me, but there's certainly good opportunities, right? But I mean, you could go to
Yeah.
McKinsey and be a
Mhm.
consultant. You could go to
Okay.
private equity and make a lot of money. You could go be an
Hmm.
investment banker. You could go do general management, right?
Hmm.
But to me, to me, it just honestly, like, I know I'm going to work my ass off no matter what I do. Like, I want the return for how
Yeah.
hard I work. And if I make good decisions, I want the upside opportunity to be there. I don't want to give it to somebody else. I want to take it myself. And I want to
Hmm.
build something too, right? I feel very confident enough in my ability to lead and establish a team, to attract the best people to join my team,
Hmm.
to guide in times of hardship. And then, based off all the experiences I have from being a CPA, from being in special forces, from getting my MBA at Harvard, if I don't have the skill set yet to be able to build a business of at least reasonable success, I'm never going to get it. So I'd rather learn now, right? So, and there's the autonomy, right? If I'm going to work
Hmm.
hard, like work on my own time, do my own thing. If I want to cut out in the afternoon and go to Abby's soccer game or soccer
Yep.
practice, I can do that. I don't want to go to McKinsey and have a 26-year-old texting me to finish a PowerPoint slide, right? Like, I don't care. And that's not a good environment for me. That wouldn't
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
for me, right? That'd
Yeah.
be Ernst and Young, Washington, D.C. 2.0. And I would hand them my computer, flip them the bird, and see you later. Back out to
Go
Yellowstone.
on. Yeah. Do your walkabout 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, that there must be something in our DNA about that because I couldn't do that either. Like every time
yeah.
I think about going back to like a traditional job, I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way I
Um,
could do something like that. Um, so okay, so none of that's for you. Um, so what is for you? What are you building? What is this next phase of what I like to call turning hard? What is the subtitle of my own book? A guide to turning life's hardest moments into meaningful contribution for the world. So what contribution, meaningful contribution are you building for the world?
yeah.
And
So
you're
the
going to have
company.
to dumb it down for us, please.
Yeah. Well, the company is called Bandelier Technologies. And so really it started from one conversation here at Harvard. I had he's a fellow veteran and he had started a quantum company and they were doing like quantum applications for national defense and security. It's just
Can
very
you
interesting.
first tell us what a quantum application is, please?
Yeah, so there's kind of like three buckets, right? So there's quantum compute, and you hear a lot about that and how that'll change the world. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. We don't do anything in that realm at all. But there's also quantum sensing, which is a much more sensitive way that we use sensors to detect things, right?
Hmm.
And that can mean everything from like in an environment like the Ukraine where GPS signal is jammed and denied, giving you the
Okay.
ability to navigate without GPS, right?
Hmm.
So we're developing some technology that does that. And then it can also give you the ability to communicate in methods that are different than how we've communicated in the past, right? So rather than using radio waves, you would use quantum mechanics, quantum particles to communicate. Um, so yeah, so this one conversation with an entrepreneur, he's an Air Force vet. He came here to Harvard Business School also, and just talked to him. And he was like, if you're interested, there might be people out in New Mexico who would like to talk to you. And Lauren and I were thinking and been talking a lot about where do we want to go after these 2 years, right? Because you're in your MBA, the clock is on. Like
Yeah.
you will finish and you will leave here, and you do have to do something else, right? You can't
Mhm.
you can't drag this on out forever. And so when he said New Mexico, we'd been talking about Denver or Washington, D.C. or one thing that I'd come into school at first with is I thought maybe I could like buy up a bunch of accounting firms and turn that a
Mhm.
bunch of small businesses into a really big business. But I kind of just had this feeling of like, I miss the mission. I miss
Yeah.
the focus on the national security and, kind of that impact, right? Is that the
Yeah,
impact that I wanted
absolutely.
to have in the world? There's nothing wrong with doing that. You can create a ton of great jobs, and that is a very positive impact.
Yes.
But it wasn't the impact that I was in search for, and it wasn't the impact that I was looking to make in the world. After the rescue and after the time in special forces, I'm very deeply interested and passionate about national security and the
Mhm.
the national defense for the United States of America. And so that left me in this place where I was very, very well suited for this conversation and teed up for once it happened. It just clicked. And I was like, New
Mhm.
Mexico, oh, Los Alamos National Laboratory. Oh, that's cool. Like, what might be there? And so, the door was there and I could have walked through it or not walked through it, right? It would have been
Yeah.
easy to just kind of blow this I mean, how many conversations like that do you have where
Yeah.
someone says, "Oh, I'll introduce you to so and so," and then you're like, "Oh, great, another Zoom call. Who cares? Like, I don't want to do another Zoom call." And
Uh,
so, but something it just piqued my interest enough, right? And I was like,
mhm,
"Oh,
mhm.
that sounds different. That's kind of cool." And so from there, started to slowly get connected to some of the people at Los Alamos. There's a program called the New Mexico Lab Embedded Entrepreneurship Program that I'm in now. And that gives me a full-time salary for 2 years, benefits for myself and Lauren and the kids. We have a contract with Los Alamos, which is how we do these collaborative projects together. Um, and it also, in a very unique way, de-risked taking this entrepreneurial leap,
Mhm.
by helping me to know, like, okay, I have a full-time salary for a couple years, leaving school with family, right? That's very important.
Yeah.
Um, and so from there, just like getting to know the people at Los Alamos and
Mhm.
learning more about the technologies that are out there, I would have never in a million years thought that I would leave Harvard doing a quantum startup for national defense, right? Like that would not have been on the radar. But
I mean, everything that you just said, and not to like denigrate your intelligence or your skill set, but also or our family or anything, but like people need to understand that we grew up in the middle of a cornfield in southern Ohio. Like,
yeah,
like we like did not we went to Christian schools, but I'm not sure like half of those teachers were even certified teachers. Like,
yeah. I would
you know,
say now I'm certain they weren't.
yeah.
One of the funniest reactions to me when this very first started is I told Dad at a very high level what I was doing. This was out in Montana, and he just sat in his chair and he stared off in the distance for a second, and he just went, "Huh, I always thought you'd be a coach." Hey, I'm
Oh
thinking there's going to
my
be this feedback or questions, and he's just
God.
dumbfounded. Huh.
I
I always just thought you'd be a coach. And
I
just to
mean,
be fair, I'm assistant coaching Abby's soccer team to the
well,
best head
there
coach
you
in the
go.
league, who is Lauren. We're undefeated, I might add.
Wait,
But
Lauren's the
I do
coach?
love coaching, so it actually has been fun.
Did you
Yeah,
just say
Lauren's
Lauren's
the
the
coach.
soccer coach?
Yeah, I'm the assistant to the regional
Oh my
soccer coach.
God. You guys, you're entering that phase of parenthood that it just makes like competitive people like you, like you're gonna
Oh, I
just
love
like,
it.
yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna
after the game,
crush
someone's
it.
like, I didn't yell at that kid too much, right?
As married to someone who's like that, yes, this has been my life for the last 10 years. But okay, so yes, like sorry to interrupt you, but I do just have to like bring some levity to it because I'm very incredibly proud of you. And also like it does kind of blow my mind. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I read some of these proposals after we submit them, and I'm like, huh, I actually understood that. That's pretty and crazy. Like, go figure. The number one thing I'd learned about during my MBA at Harvard was quantum physics.
Right. So like how do you go about I mean, and again, if you're listening to this, like this guy learned Arabic, as an adult, like that had to have been really difficult. And all the other things that you have had to learn and do. But what is it like to learn about quantum physics? Like with, I don't even know what to ask because I don't have the vocabulary or the understanding or the words.
Well, I think some of my time in special forces, I started off as a communication sergeant, and I think that
Okay.
was actually very helpful and gave me a very tangible baseline to build upon. It's
Hmm.
different, right? But you're dealing with a lot
Sure.
of radio waves and radio theory and stuff. So there's some baseline there to work with. I mean, I think one thing that has helped is I'm okay to just be humble and be like, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like if scientists are
Mm,
rambling, I'll just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I think,
mm,
with the age of AI that we're into, like you've
hmm.
never had, if you're motivated, the information's never been more accessible
Yeah.
and easier to get into a congestible manner and seek
Yeah.
out and get
Yeah.
back the information that you need. So what it's looked like for me is I'll go have a conversation. If I don't know stuff, then I remember that, and immediately after I go look it up and I read and I read and
Hmm.
I read and figure it out, and definitely learn through talking, right? But as an entrepreneur, you're constantly interfacing with different people, telling them about what you're building, getting questions, right? Getting
Hmm.
some every conversation there's, well, maybe not every anymore, but initially every conversation there was a new question that I'd never heard. And so that
Right.
forces you to learn. And we work with some of the best scientists in the world, right? So if I don't know it, they need to tell me, right?
Yeah.
Like the most important person for to know it is the scientist, but second
Right.
most me, because I'm the face for the company. So if I can't articulate it to at least a certain level, then these stakeholders and these potential customers and partners that we're going to work with will never have the trust in the company to do it. And so I think when you're motivated, right, there's something there. Another entrepreneur that I talked with, I think that this is very true, but if you're going to go into quantum, you need to find it interesting. Like it needs to be very interesting to
Yeah.
you. And I do think it's fascinating, right? It's definitely in what way this comes to realization, I'm not sure, but just like how AI has happened over the last couple of years now and is happening right now, the next thing that will do that will be quantum, right? I don't
Hmm.
know if it's going to be next year. I don't know if it'll be 5 years, maybe it'll be 20 years, but it will be
Hmm.
quantum. That will be the next thing that happens that way. And it gives you that right hand tailwind, right, to go
Hmm.
into as an entrepreneur, where you get to
Hmm.
be in the wild west of the industry
Yeah.
versus at the tail end of AI, right? So,
Right.
and then Los Alamos is, one of the most world famous places for quantum innovation,
Okay.
and so, I think having access to the national lab systems and even at Harvard and MIT, there's amazing physicists here that do
Hmm.
all sorts of groundbreaking experimentation. And so, just being fully immersed in this ecosystem, and then, just committing to it. Once I decided I was going to do it, like I have not wavered, right? It was just
Hmm.
full steam ahead and start picking up people to join.
Hmm.
Uh, Josh Hebner was one of my teammates in Special Forces. We deployed together multiple times. He's down at Duke finishing up his MBA, but he was one of the first people, or maybe the first person to join the company, right? So
Hmm.
getting to build a company with someone that's a best friend and that you've,
Hmm.
served with together, deployed with together, I mean, that's a huge asset, right? Like I
Yeah.
always joke like a couple grunts and we're like off to the races and like know what we need to do, right? So,
Hmm.
and there's also like, we probably, if I'm grumpy or, whatever, like he understands and like has like seen it before. So he doesn't like take it too personal and like, not getting our feelings hurt. Like we've got a mission that we're trying to accomplish
Yeah.
and we got stuff we need to do. So let's
Yeah.
go do it.
So what's the mission that you're trying to accomplish if you were to like summarize that?
Yeah, I think the mission at the highest level is that we want to take this groundbreaking quantum technologies that have been invented at Los Alamos and get them out of the lab and get them into the real world, get them into usable, fieldable, deployable systems for the United States military, right? There's so much capabilities and so much new technology that could be fielded for the military, but it's
Hmm.
not yet. It's not out there yet, right? Like, I tell a few stories that I like kind of pull from in my experience was in Syria, we were living in this one little facility with the Kurdish special forces, but just like up the hill, there was a drone unit that we were sort of paired with or kind of in charge of, right? And they crashed their drone one night in this big farmer's field below us, right? And we're like, oh, you guys are idiots. Like, you're so dumb. Why are you crashing your drone? That's your only job. Okay. And then it happened again a little later. And then we're like, okay, we have a problem, right? And so as we dug into it, right, a near peer adversary was jamming the drone. Like we
Yeah, that's
weren't
what I was
idiots,
thinking.
right?
Yeah.
The near peer adversary was specifically jamming it because they knew that the drone unit was up there.
Hmm.
If you look through like the communications equipment, when it wasn't working, right? Was it not working because it was jammed? Was it spoofed? Or did we
Hmm.
just not have comms, right? And
Hmm.
then two, we see the drone warfare is definitely front page news right now, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's not new, right? We didn't want to forecast and broadcast out our weakness. We've been getting struck by drones in Syria and Jordan and Iraq and all these places for a long time. This is not new.
Hmm.
ISIS was doing this in 2015 or 16, right? So,
Hmm.
but maybe we don't broadcast our weaknesses. Now, cat's out of the bag, right? We can't pull it back in. Everyone knows.
Right.
But even back then, right? Like we had very significant degradation of the radar systems to the point where we didn't know if we were going to get hit or not. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think those experiences, as you combine them, just left me with this question of like where's like the actual advanced technology that's supposed to help us combat these kind of issues, and where's the actual advanced technology that helps us like get this advantage, right?
Hmm.
Like the United States should have the advantage
Yeah.
in all fronts, but certainly on technology. And, from my experience and the experience of many like myself, while in some ways we did, there were a lot of ways that you would expect that we didn't. And I
Hmm.
think that that's really core to the mission is that we have the know-how, we have the national labs, and I think that this is one of many ways that we can get this technology out to the front lines, out to the people that are actually still, in the middle of the combat, and help them do their jobs better, help keep them
Hmm.
safer, and then ultimately, help us be more successful and the missions that the nation chooses to undertake, and then help these guys get home to their families sooner, safer, and happier, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like if I were to, you know, simplify it, it sounds like you're building a bridge from theory to application. And it is really interesting because as a layperson to, have very little understanding of this whole world, why haven't we created that bridge already? Why are we so behind as a country when we put so much money toward, national defense and our military?
Yeah, I think, it depends on what area you look at, right? There's some areas where I think we're very far ahead and no one will ever catch us, right?
Okay.
No one will ever catch us in some areas. But there's some areas where maybe we've under-indexed on and adversarial nations have maybe over-indexed on and we fell behind them in those particular areas. And I view quantum as one of those areas, right? So I think that it's just maybe we stayed a little more entrenched in what we were good at and didn't reach out to what would be next, right? And
Okay.
so I think that that allowed us to maybe lose some ground and where we could have stayed in front. And so I think though also one of the things that at Bandelier that Josh and I do that's very unique is that we're putting the actual like front lines like guys that have fought the wars together with the scientists and engineers
Yes.
developing the technology, and we talk and we go through
Yes.
it. And sometimes they have an idea and we push back and say that won't work because you can't put it on a truck. And then
Hmm.
sometimes we have an ideas and they say that won't work because there's these things called the laws of physics and that's not possible. And then we're like, oh, okay.
Laws of physics, I would
Yeah.
imagine, trump everything.
You're like, well, maybe if you're a better scientist, you'd figure it out.
I bet that goes over well.
Yeah, well, thick skin. If you don't have thick skin, you could go work for somebody else.
Oh my God. So, okay. So, I mean, what do I want to ask next? I guess I want to ask next, what is next for you, or this is the next for you?
Yeah, I mean, so being here at Harvard Business School is a great experience. I'm incredibly fortunate to have gotten the opportunity to come here for school
Yeah.
and be around all these incredibly smart people. But, an MBA, doing a full-time MBA is 2 years, and my 2 years is up. And so I'll graduate here within the month, and then next month we'll move out to New Mexico. We just
Mhm.
closed on a house yesterday. So we'll
Congratulations.
move out to Santa Fe, New Mexico with wife, soon to be three
Hmm.
kids.
Yep.
Josh is moving out with his wife and his three kids, and we're hiring quite a bit right now. So the team was at four. By the end of summer, we'll be at eight. And
Wow.
then hopefully into the fall or by the winter, we'll be, quite a bit bigger than that. So, it's off to the races, and I
Hmm.
think that there's a lot of good forward momentum behind the company, and I think being on the ground will be very helpful, right, for us. We got everyone that's a little spread out right now, and we need to get
Yeah.
everyone together under the same
Yes.
roof, and I think that's where the true collaboration happens. I know I feel
Hmm.
that when I go out there and I'm on the
Hmm.
ground for a couple of days. I'm like, man, I just got like a week of work done in an
Yeah.
afternoon versus when
Yeah.
I'm back here in Boston. So, but again, very, very grateful for this opportunity to come to Harvard. Like I said, I would have never expected that this would have been an opportunity that availed itself to me. So incredibly grateful, but I'm also super ready to be done. I'm probably not the most
Yeah.
academically inclined person. I'm a doer. I want to go do
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
so I'm getting all that I could ask for and more with starting a company and learn something every day. But I think that we're willing to learn, and we learn quick, and we apply it, and we go make better decisions. And so we're also bringing in some really experienced people here in the next
Hmm.
couple months, and that will make us a better company
Yeah.
as we use that wealth of experience that they've gained in their careers on the engineering and the science side, and that helps me and to make better decisions to guide the business.
Amazing. So I guess maybe like in conclusion, there's so many things we could talk about, but I guess I'm curious what you would say to someone who is perhaps where you were, that person who was working at Ernst and Young and was like, this is not the life I want to lead. My mentor, my business mentor, Krista, always she asks me every time I have like a coaching session with her, she asks me three questions, and I think about these every day. What business do you want to be in? What life do you want to lead? And who are you here to serve? And so those are my three guiding questions for what I do in my day to day and in my life. And what would you say to the Ernst and Young kid who is just now realizing that what they really want is to be in pursuit of impact? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, there's lots of impact you could have at a Ernst& Young or
Yeah,
doing
we're
that.
not picking on
So
Ernst
if
and
you're
Young.
having the impact that you want to have there, then I would say like work hard and treat
Yeah.
people the right way and continue to make that impact. But like for myself back then when there was a different kind of impact that I wanted to have, I think one of the things that was very helpful to me to be able to take the leap and go do these things and take on the risk that these decisions all had packaged in with them was just to understand that life's short, right? Like we saw mom pass away. I was only 21, right? Like, do you want to plod away at something you hate for a long time and always wonder, like, oh, should I have done this other thing instead? Or do you want to try? Even if I try and fail, I'd rather have that experience and know
Mhm.
than wonder, what if I would have tried it, right? And so I think your time is very precious, right? You can go make more money, you can go make more friends. You can't get another family, so you're stuck with them, right? But your time is precious, and you're losing it, right? Every second you're losing it. So I think make the most of that time and go do what you want to do, right? Like take the time, do the research, do your homework, do some soul searching. But if that's what
Mhm.
you want to do, stop telling yourself why you can't do it and go figure out a way to make it happen and go
Yeah.
try, right?
Yeah.
And then you might be shocked at what happens if you do go try. Like I remember reading like an article in my apartment in Chattanooga, like probably like 13 years ago now, but it was of this guy, and he had gone to college, and then he became a Green Beret, and then he went to Harvard, and then he did, whatever he decided he wanted to do after. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh, that'd be cool. If I could do that, that'd be cool, right? And so, like, um, while as unlikely as it is that coming out of the cornfield and playing basketball on the rocks and cowboy boots or whatever, right, that I would be here
You
like I
did,
am,
yeah.
right? And we'll see what the business turns itself into. But I mean, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, we're going to go
Yeah.
fast and we're going to turn it into something big. And like, God help you if you get in our way.
Okay, so for those who'd like to join the mission or learn more about it, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look up Bandelier Technologies on LinkedIn, given the type of mission that we're in, I don't think we create a ton of social media content. So
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a good one for us, and I'm on LinkedIn, so always I'll see if you message me or anything like that on LinkedIn, I'll see it. So that's probably the ideal way. And we have our bandeliertech.com is the website, and you can always drop a note in there, and we'll see that. So, but yeah.
Wow. I'm just proud of myself that I made it through this whole conversation without crying. So, I do just want to say how deeply proud I am of you. And I'm just so grateful that you have given yourself the chance to explore and to innovate and to be happy more than anything. That's all I think a big sister wants for her siblings is just for them to be happy. And it really does make me so happy to watch you flourish and build this business and continue to create your own path for success and to grow your family. And, who knows what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but I know it's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, and then I think, I'd say like thanks to you for always like paving a path, right? Like it's not easy, but
I'm
it's
not
opened
sure
up our
everybody wants to
eyes. It's
follow my
opened up
path
our
all the
eyes to what's
way.
possible.
Well, do what I can what I do.
Mhm.
So, all right. Thanks, Bud, for your time.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for listening to How to Survive Survival. If you found something meaningful here, I'd ask for you to subscribe, share, or leave a 5-star review so these conversations can reach others who are walking their own road back. You can learn more about me and my work at www.jessbuchanan.com. And until next time, remember what happened to you is only part of the story. What you choose to do with it is where your power lives.